Make no mistake about it, Sam Darnold was super as he pushed the Seattle Seahawks to victory. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome into the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by the legacy, Louis DiBiase. On today's show, we are going to break down an awesome conference championship weekend. The Super Bowl is now set. Mike Vrabel uses his magic to push the Patriots to another Super Bowl, and Sam Darnold gets the credit that he finally deserves after he takes the Seahawks to the biggest game of his life. Also, we got some coaching news in the NFL over the weekend, and I think the Steelers made a big mistake with Mike McCarthy. Before we get into all of that, I do want to thank you for making the Locked On NFL your first listen, and thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. But Louis, it was an incredible game. The second game, as most of us expected, even before the weather hit in Denver, most of us expected that Seahawks-Rams game to be magical, and it's kind of crazy to think that this game was separated by 4 points. That's more than the total of separation of the last two matchups between these games. But ultimately, in my mind, the story is Sam Darnold, who battled right there with Matthew Stafford, probably going to be the league MVP, 346 yards, 3 touchdowns, a guy who's played on a ton of different teams, failed at a ton of different places. Like, to me, Sam Darnold, we talked about, hey, is he going to be able to step up in a big moment? Is he actually going to come through in the clutch when the pressure is on him? They've been kind of minimizing him with the run game and all that. But Sam Darnold, for, lack of a better term, was absolutely super in this game, made all the big plays. And again, he deserves what he's about to get this next 2 weeks and the credit he's going to be showered with.
Yeah, and he outdueled a Matt Stafford that was having one of the best playoff runs we've seen in a very long time. This was like Tom Brady 2020. When Joe Flacco got hot back in the day in 2012, the Road Warriors through the wild card, Sam Darnold outperformed Matt Stafford at his highest level of play in the NFC Championship. And to be a Vikings fan right now, to be a Jets fan or a Panthers fan, just brutal, because Darnold proved to all of them that he's the real deal. He's a franchise quarterback. Support systems are so important in the NFL, and Seattle gave him that as much as Minnesota did last year, and it paid off in a huge way. He made their bet on him worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of funny to look back at the decision that the Seahawks made here. Mike McDonald makes a big swing. They trade Geno Smith. They trade DK Metcalf. You bring in Cooper Kupp. You bring in Sam Darnold, and people are like, is that really an upgrade? Did they kind of, honestly, the takeaway at the time was, are they just accepting it's kind of a transition year for them? No, it's not a transition year. They're all the way in. And man, Mike McDonald, we're going to talk a lot about coaching here in the next segment when we get to Mike Vrabel and all of that. But Mike McDonald, what a job he's done. And I said before, I think he should be the coach of the year. I know that the Seahawks didn't flip the thing like the way the Jags did with Liam Cohen or how the Patriots did with Mike Vrabel. And I think if you got the vote with the postseason in tow, it probably would go to Mike Vrabel with what's happened there. I think that's fair to say. But when I was talking about, before the playoffs had even started, I think that's the fairest time to talk about awards, so you're not tainted by what happens in the playoffs, because nobody be voting for Drake May for MVP right now if we could vote after the playoffs, and that's a discussion that we'll talk about. But man, Mike McDonald not only taking that defense, but taking that team to where it's at. Think about if you're the Baltimore Ravens. I know it's hard not to, I said it to you right before we started, it's like the moron bowl. Like the Tennessee Titans are absolute morons for letting Mike Vrabel go. The Minnesota Vikings are absolute morons for letting Sam Darnold go. You mentioned the Jets, the Bills, all these other teams that can be included in dumb things that they've done to let it get to this point. But at some point, you got to look at the totality of the situation.
Yeah.
Say the Baltimore Ravens let Mike
Sure.
McDonald walk out of the door and then fire John Harbaugh a little bit later. It's just crazy the mistakes that get made that set up these situations.
I completely agree. And look, we put so much emphasis on the value of the quarterback position. We want guys that can carry you in all situations because look at this year. The NFL is so unpredictable. But what we've seen with Sam Darnold and the Seahawks is that having a strong organization to build around a quarterback is so crucial. You look at all those teams we mentioned, they failed these coaches in a way, or these quarterbacks. In Seattle, you mentioned the job of Mike McDonald, but not just him, Clint Kubiak. Unbelievable play calling job today.
Yes.
I think if I'm the Buffalo Bills, a team like that, I am waiting for him for a couple weeks to try to make him my new head coach. Even my team, the Philadelphia Eagles, I might move on from my head coach to hire somebody like that. But we got to give a shout out to John Schneider, the executive of the year. You mentioned already some of the gambles that paid off in a huge way. Like the Sam Darnold move, people were wondering if they downgraded going from Geno Smith to Darnold. They were wondering, why are you getting rid of Metcalf and Lockett and featuring JSN? The Rashid Shaheed trade at the deadline. These draft classes, like
Gray
Sable.
Dude, he traded up for Wari.
Yeah.
That was a trade with the Titans. He traded
Right.
2 picks to move up and get him, and he fundamentally changed how they run scheme on defense.
Even the Kupp move, like Kupp made a couple big plays today on third down, that touchdown. None of these moves seemed like just surefire, can't miss moves, and it feels like they all hit. Even the offensive line, a reason me and you were kind of skeptical if Darnold was going to pan out is because Seattle's offensive line has been one of the worst in the league for the last 5 years, and they've got a bunch of core pieces there. So John Schneider, I mean, Howie Roseman's been getting all the praise the last few years as the best GM in the game, but Schneider's right there. I mean, the defense, like from top to bottom, looks like the Legion of Boom again. Devin Witherspoon with some huge plays today. Wari. Schneider has built one of the most complete rosters in football, and that's the reason I think over anything they're getting to the Super Bowl.
Now, it just goes to show you how difficult of a process building an NFL team is.
Right.
Like Sam Darnold, you go back, 4 years ago, Sam Darnold's a bum. He'll never do anything.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. You go back and you look, JSN, he's not, a top wide receiver in the NFL, and all the different things you're saying. The
Even
different
Kenneth
players.
Walker, man. Like Kenneth Walker,
Yes.
injury-prone running back, probably now the RB2 behind Charbonnet, and look at him dominating in the NFC title.
Cooper Kupp is washed, and
yeah.
Ernest Jones got moved by the Rams and moved by the Titans, and like all these different things. It just goes to show you that just because certain players or certain coaches have bad seasons or bad years, like it doesn't always mean that they are the problem and that it's impossible to win without them.
Support
just a great
system.
performance. I do want to
That's the
at
thing.
least talk about the Rams aspect of this because
Yeah.
what a colossal failure of a season for the Los Angeles Rams. And that's what my guy Doug from Locked On Rams talked about after the game.
Well, I guess the Rams are Super Bowl appearanceless in Seattle because the Rams lose to the Seahawks in the NFC Championship game 31-27 in a game that really epitomized their season. An MVP performance from Matthew Stafford, a great game from Puka Nacua. Devontae Adams had his moments. The running game got it going there for a while, but it was the secondary that got exposed once again. Sam Darnold, 346 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, complete almost 70% of his passes, and another failed operation by the special teams. A couple big kicks from Harrison Mevis, but 2 big muff punts by Xavier Smith. The second one that led to a Seahawks touchdown early in the third quarter. Rams fought back. They were in a position to go ahead there. They went for it on 4th and 4. They didn't get it. Seahawks get the ball back, and yet another costly penalty in the secondary from Kobe Durant, and a play that essentially ended the game. So for most teams, it would be a successful season, an NFC Championship game, but I look at it as one of the biggest what-if seasons in Rams history because you had Matthew Stafford having an MVP season, playing the best football of his future Hall of Fame career, a top 10 offense, a top 10 defense, the best offense in football, and they can't even get to the Super Bowl. And we'll look back at that Week 16 loss in Seattle where they basically coughed up the 1 seed, a bye and home field advantage throughout the playoffs as the biggest what-if as well. Bright side for the Rams, you got 2 first-round picks and 1 more year of Matthew Stafford. But I look at this season, even though it'd be great for most, I think it was a failure for the Rams.
100% a failure. They were good enough to win. They had a good enough roster. And I got to say this, there are a couple of massive failures, and Doug talked about them right there. Special teams has been the Achilles heel of this team all year long. And Louis, you know it. You saw what happened to the Rams in Philadelphia. They should have won that game, and they didn't because of special team stuff. And the muff punt, I mean, how can you not look at that and be like, oh, that's the difference in the game. That gave Seattle a free touchdown when it should have been the Rams' ball. Like, that swung this game in a way that totally changed everything.
Yeah, that was the swing. And to waste, again, this was one of the best playoff performances from a quarterback, not just in the NFC title, but you combine all 3 games of what Stafford did in these shootouts, being a road warrior, almost getting them to the Super Bowl. As he mentioned, it's one of the biggest what-if seasons because, again, this goes to show they were almost there. They almost made the Super Bowl, but road warriors, like getting through the playoffs, having to play 3 to 4 straight road games to get it done.
Difficult.
Teams have done it in the past, but there's a reason most of the time, man, the 1 and 2 seeds get to the Final Four and they get to the Super Bowl. It's really hard to do what the Rams put themselves in a situation to have to do because they blew the division and the 1 seed and fell all the way down to the 5. So they have nobody to blame but themselves for that. And that stinks because Stafford, I mean, even today, just dicing up a really good defense.
Yeah, he was absolutely incredible. He deserved to move forward. And I think you got to look at, you know, Chris Shula is kind of a hot candidate at the end of the year, but man, his defense got wrecked like for the last 6
all 3
weeks
games
in a row.
Yeah, yes. And the playoffs. Yeah.
If his defense made any kind of plays whatsoever to justify the level of hype he was getting as a coaching candidate, and you wonder, you know, we're going to talk about the Steelers at the end of the show because I didn't really like the hire of Mike McCarthy for the Steelers, but their other option reportedly was, you know, they were high on Chris Shula, and you wonder, did what's happened in the playoffs maybe influence the Steelers' decision? Either way, we're talking coaching, and there is no coach that deserves more credit than Mike Vrabel. Do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to stay locked into every moment than with Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where it always feels good to be right. With football season coming down to its final stretch, now is the perfect time to close it out strong. Prize Picks makes watching the game even more exciting by letting you build simple lineups around player projections. No drafts, no waiting, just football action all the way through the playoffs. Prize Picks is incredibly easy to get started. You just pick 2 or more players and choose more or less on their projections. My favorite feature is an early payout feature where if a player gets hot, you can cash out early. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. It's Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Today's episode is also brought to you by Robinhood. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not just you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood. Now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. All right, Louis, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. Again, Sam Darnold was super for the Hawks, but you got to feel super disappointed if you're the Los Angeles Rams. But now we got to move on to, again, just a magical ride for the New England Patriots that keeps going all the way to the Super Bowl. My guy Nick Cattles talked about just how crazy it's been.
Oh my freaking goodness. The Patriots are headed to the Super Bowl in the middle of a blizzard in Denver. Can you freaking believe what we just saw? Mike Vrabel, just so smart. His usage of the clock late in this game. Drake May with the huge conversion to end this football game. The Patriots' magical carpet ride continues. They head to the Super Bowl. They will get the winner of the Rams and the Seahawks. But man, oh man, the run game really was the difference, including Drake May's ability to break, contain, come up with some chunk plays. But the Patriots are Super Bowl bound. We will react to this coming up on Locked On Patriots. Boy, oh boy, I can't freaking believe it.
I can't believe it either. Louis, the Patriots. Again, we finally get rid of the Kansas City Chiefs. For 1 year, the Chiefs are out. And who do we get? The Patriots. Be careful what you wish for, folks. But all jokes aside here, this was a Mike Vrabel masterclass. Absolute masterclass. The big play of the game where Jared Stidham, they go for it on the 4th down early in the game instead of taking the field goal. I know that everybody wants to, take shots at Sean Payton for not taking the field goal there. How could he know that it was going to turn into a blizzard in the middle of the 3rd quarter and then he wouldn't be able to do anything? I think it was smart to go for it there, but on the other side of it, Mike Vrabel had that play totally washed. He was perfectly ready for the rollout dump off to the running back in the flat. His team was perfectly prepared situationally. They didn't make mistakes at the end of the game to throw it away. They didn't do a lot to win the game at the end of the day, but, even Drake May sliding down with 1 second left and Vrabel being right there to call timeout, using the clock at the end of the game like Nick talked about. Like, this was an ugly, terrible football game at the end, but as we've seen throughout his entire career as a head coach, and as I know very well, nobody is better at situational football. And when every fan base, 31 fan bases in the NFL are mad at their head coach for how they handle situational awareness and game management stuff, Mike Vrabel blows everyone out of the water and is basically perfect at all times with every decision that he makes. Mike Vrabel's magic is what has pushed the New England Patriots to this point, no matter their schedule, the playoff opponents, all the stuff that we could talk about. At the end of the day, Mike Vrabel deserves all the credit in the world. He is one of the best 5 coaches in the entire NFL, and he might be the best.
Yeah, both things can be true that the Patriots had, and this is just classic Boston sports, just the luckiest fan base in all the world. If you were born after 2000 in the city of Boston, 6 years after having the greatest player of all time take you to 10 Super Bowls, win 6 of them or 9 of them, right? For 20 years, they get right back there less than a decade later. Just unfair. This is proof life can be unfair. Sorry, Bills fans. Sorry, Jets fans. But at the same time, what can also be true is what you're saying, that Mike Vrabel probably will win Coach of the Year, and I think it's well-deserved. If your coach is not going to be a play caller, for me, I cover the Eagles, like Nick Sirianni. If you're not going to be like the head of the offense or the head of the defense, you have to be like Mike Vrabel in game management. Yes. Or else what is the impact you really have during the game? I'm not saying during the week. And Vrabel, it's so obvious that he has such a really positive impact on the game. I agree with you. His management skills are unbelievable, and there's not a lot else to really give compliments to with the Patriots today. I think a lot of it was just the situation they tripped into. But you're right. The one winner of today was definitely Vrabel, and it would be really cool. I mean, the one positive part of the Patriots winning it all would be to see him being the first person ever to win a Super Bowl for the same team as a player and a coach. Like, that is kind of a cool story. I just hate what franchise it's for, unfortunately.
Yeah, let me get the puke out of the back of my throat real quick when we're talking about
I can't stop thinking about what you just said about the Chiefs. Like, the 1 year, it's not Darth Vader, it's Lord Palpatine. It's just ridiculous.
Literally, and somehow Palpatine returned.
I'm so glad you used that reference.
That's just what happened right there. But, this is what Mike Vrabel does, man. I go back to the 2021 year where the Tennessee Titans got the number 1 seed. The Titans set a record that season with 91 players on their roster. How can you have 91 players and set a record for the most injuries in NFL history and get the number 1 seed and Derrick Henry got hurt during that year and was out half a season, and Vrabel just finds a way to get the absolute best out of every single player.
He's a floor raiser.
He is absolutely a floor raiser, and here's the thing. The Patriots don't have a lot of superstars. Harold Landry didn't play in this game. No. Stephon Diggs is good, but he's not prime Stephon Diggs. Kayshon Boutte basically got shut down by Pat Surtain in the backfield. Ramondre Stevenson isn't that great of a back. Henderson is totally fallen apart and faded away. Drake May had 86 yards passing. Drake May has been categorically awful this entire playoffs. He has been a disaster the entire playoffs. And it hasn't mattered. And it's not like the defense has a bunch of... Christian Gonzalez gets the interception today, and he's probably their most talented star player on the defensive side of the ball. But, you look at it, he has nowhere near the amount of star players and talent that all these other teams have, and it just doesn't matter. He gets the most out of the least.
No, I completely agree. But you're right about the Drake May part of this. They did not trust him in this game. He has not been sharp all playoffs, and... They've beaten some good defenses, not because of May, but they've gone through the gauntlet, right? The Chargers defense is good. Houston's defense is great. Denver's defense is great. Here's the ultimate test, though. Seattle, I know the Rams just kind of had their way with them, but the Seahawks have stars on all three levels of that unit, and so Drake May's going to have to, Vrabel's been a floor raiser in this postseason, but they need more from their quarterback if they're going to win that game, because like you said, from a talent perspective, New England is severely outmatched in Super Bowl 60, so they need more out of Drake May.
Just real quick, handicapping the game on FanDuel. What do you think the line's going to be, the first line?
I think it's at 3.5 right now, and I think that's it's gonna move. I would jump on that now if you like Seattle.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Yeah, you got to hammer that if you like Seattle.
Yeah.
I thought my initial reaction to guess, I thought it was gonna be 6.5.
That was my initial assumption before I heard what I thought it was.
Yeah, 3.5 is absolutely fantastic.
That's gonna change.
I think the Patriots will keep it closer if it gets to 6.5. I'm going to take the Patriots with that. I would love the 7, but, either way, I think the Patriots keep it closer than what the general public is going to say based on how the teams played in those games.
I would agree, yeah.
Now, we do got to talk about the Broncos. They lose. They were kind of playing with house money. They couldn't really do anything at the end. Stidham made the Patriots just get gifted a touchdown by the Broncos' mistake. And, I know that there was a backup quarterback in, but there's still disappointment in Denver. And that's something that my guy Sayer Benninger talked about after the game.
The Denver Broncos' awesome 2025 season has officially come to a close in the AFC Championship game. The Broncos fell 10-7 to the New England Patriots and just couldn't quite overcome both the loss of Bo Nix and the elements. And you can't help but wonder, is Sean Payton going to second guess himself for not taking the points when he had the opportunity when the weather was not a factor? The Broncos up 7-0, gave up and passed on the opportunity to take what would have been a pretty easy chip shot field goal for Will Lutz, instead trying to go for it on 4th down, really trying to take control of the game, and they just couldn't quite pick it up, and the Patriots end up winning the game by 3 points. And certainly it was a great season for the Denver Broncos, dominating defense, and they played awesome defensively in this game. But once again, you go back to the drawing board on the offensive side of the ball, pass catchers, an issue. And obviously we all look at the health of Bo Nix, who seems to be on the right trajectory after his ankle injury.
I got to tell you though, I think the Broncos are a team that's primed for a letdown next year. They get this far, things kind of fall apart. I don't think that the defense is great, but I just don't think the Broncos are going to get the kind of luck that they got this year where they had all these comeback victories at the end and everything. Like, things just don't go your way 2 years in a row like that.
They're the Commanders of 2024. I think they're due for a letdown in 2026. And real quick, just to wrap things up with Denver, that 4th down play, again, I like being aggressive, but I think if you're Sean Payton, you got to understand the situation you're in with the backup quarterback. You're going to need points, against a team like the Patriots that keep things close. I don't know. I think 4th down culture, I love being aggressive, but it's hurt some teams in the postseason. The over-aggression sometimes, I don't know. I think that's hurt. It's hurt the Bills. It's hurt the Broncos. I think it's come back to bite a few teams. So they might be asking what if with that one. But overall, I think you're right that I think Denver got a lot farther than maybe they should have even, considering their roster.
I think that's fair. The AFC was so weird this year with the way everything worked out and the lack of the star quarterbacks and everything. I just can't expect that to happen 2 years in a row. But with that being said, talking about another team that I think may take a step back, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers, who made a very strange and uncharacteristic decision with their head coaching hire this weekend. Do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. If I ever needed to hire someone for this show, which I don't because Louie's fantastic, I'd go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I need. Real experience not just a buzzword. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. All right, Louis, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about the two conference championship games, but there was big-time news outside of the games in the NFL this weekend. We got a couple more coaching hires, a couple more spots get filled up, and both in the AFC North. And we have to start with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, listen, I think Mike McCarthy made some sense for a couple of teams that needed to raise their floor. But the Steelers did not need to raise their floor. They needed to raise their ceiling. And you could tell my guy Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers is a little hesitant about the hire as well.
Hey everyone, Chris Carter here from the Locked On Steelers podcast with a breaking news update. The Steelers are hiring Mike McCarthy, former head coach of the Green Bay Packers and Dallas Cowboys, as their new head coach to follow up on Mike Tomlin. This is a stunning turnaround for the Steelers, the team that looked like they were waiting to see if they could get a chance to interview Chris Shula, Rams defensive coordinator, and Nate Shieldhouse, their passing game coordinator. The Steelers had typically gone with their last three hires with coaches in their 30s who were defensive assistants, which lined up perfectly to get Chris Shula, who's been highly touted as one of the best coaching prospects of this hiring cycle. But with the Steelers making this move, this signs that maybe they're trying to bring back Aaron Rodgers for one more go. It makes me wonder if Mike McCarthy is a very temporary hire. Either way, this is a big shock to Steelers fans everywhere. We'll get more on the Locked On Steelers podcast reacting to this. I'm Chris Carter. Follow me on Carter Critiques on all your social apps. And remember to get the Locked On Steelers podcast on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube.
Again, I just think that the Steelers needed to do something that could push them forward. And Mike McCarthy coming back, a team with no quarterback, a bunch of aging vets. He's already 62, going to be 63 soon. Like Chris said, I just don't. I think Mike McCarthy could have got a job this cycle. I think the Steelers are okay to look for somebody new, but I just don't see this as a fit.
It's the most Pittsburgh Steelers move of all time. I mean, they just go with the safe, floor-raising, old-fashioned coaching hire of Mike McCarthy. And, I mean, like you said, they needed to evolve. They needed to raise their ceiling. And this just feels like a lateral move with Mike Tomlin. Let's get another guy that one has Super Bowl pedigree, quote unquote, from a decade and a half ago, and hope that Aaron Rodgers comes back for one more year. I don't know. It's like the Steelers continuously, every year, show us time and time again who they are, and they never change. It's kind of like if somebody had a typewriter, and it's like, oh, we need you to get up to our times to buy a computer, and it's like, I bought a flip phone. It's like, okay, you kind of moved up a little bit, but not really. I don't know what that analogy was, but you know what I mean. It's just so unattractive or just uninspiring if I'm a Steelers fan. It's like, well, the direction of this team is just status quo. Let's get back to 9 wins, and here we go again.
And here's the thing. Like, you're right when you say, like, this is something that we've seen the Steelers do. This is just like, but here's the thing, is when the Steelers were a cutting-edge franchise in the NFL that was a serious franchise, they did not do stuff like that. They always hired a young defensive-minded guy who was innovative and who they could grow with. So it's like Steelers fans were so excited because it's like, okay, we're finally going to be the Steelers again and go try to innovate and go get a young guy and go get out of this malaise. And the new age Steelers just kept going. You know, they have lost their way in Pittsburgh, and I think this move is just emblematic of that.
I think they're so terrified of being irrelevant or being really bad because they have this, like you said, past pedigree of we have the most Super Bowls in NFL history. We have 6. Like, we're the Steelers. We don't rebuild. Like, we win. We try to win every single year. We try to go for it. But that mentality is why you make moves like this, and it's why you actually never really go for it and compete for championships. The malaise is such a perfect word for it, and this move, like, just continues that process. And yeah, I mean, Does Aaron Rodgers want to play for Mike McCarthy again, by the way? I don't think he wanted to at the end of his time in Green Bay, so I don't know the direction of the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're just stuck in purgatory, and I would hate to be a fan of that franchise right now.
Louis, I don't think they know their direction. That's the number one thing that stood out to me with this is the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're vampires. You know what I mean? Their heyday was hundreds of years ago. They refused to look themselves in the mirror. Now, I know vampires can't see themselves in the mirror, but you know what I'm saying? Like, they just refuse to look at themselves in the mirror and accept where they actually are and accept that, you know, the night is darkest before the dawn. And the dawn is never going to break for the Pittsburgh Steelers until it gets darker for them, and they just will not do it. They won't turn out the light and face their fears. They won't do it.
They're just like, a guy going to his old high school bar. It's like, I'm still a legend here. It's like, dude, you're not. Like, he hasn't. Yes. You haven't been relevant in the NFL since
Take the Letterman jacket off, man.
Yeah,
it's been 20 years.
It still has the Super Bowl patch from 2010. It's like, brother, that was almost 20 years ago. Like, nobody cares about that. All the fans in the NFL now aren't even alive for that. So, it's just, when I saw that, I'm like, yep, that's a Steelers move. Like, they proved us right yet again about who they are, who we thought they were, right?
Yeah, the new age Steelers, man. And I got to be honest, I haven't seen, and not that fans always know best or anything, but I do find it interesting. I haven't seen, whether it's guys that I know personally, the reaction on social media, I haven't seen a single person who's a Steelers fan say that they like this move. Now, the Baltimore Ravens made a big-time move to move away. They kind of did what we're talking about the Steelers maybe should have do. They go out and get Jesse Minter, and my guy Kevin Ostreicher from Locked On Ravens talked about that move.
The Baltimore Ravens have their guy. Jesse Minter is the new head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. I'm Kevin Ostreicher, the host of Locked On Ravens. This is a great hire for the Ravens. Minter was widely seen as one of the most popular head coach candidates on the market this coaching cycle. Comes back to Baltimore after spending a handful of years with the Ravens. Familiarity for Baltimore. That Chargers defense was very low in defensive spending. Put up some great numbers under Minter, and he's going to hopefully turn that unit around that has seen some struggles, and hopefully he will be able to maximize Lamar Jackson's window in order to propel him and the team to a Super Bowl. Next up is filling out his staff. Offensive coordinator going to be a big topic of conversation, but for now, the Ravens get their guy, and now this team can move forward with next steps. So for more on Minter and the Ravens, be sure to check out the Locked On Ravens podcast and subscribe on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
This is absolutely a correction for letting Mike Macdonald walk out of the building. You know what I mean? Like, you're just going to go. Mike Macdonald did some work at Michigan. Jesse Minter, Michigan, Harbaugh connection. This is just a correction of that. And I'm perfectly fine with it. I think Minter is a good coach. I think we got to be careful being certain like, oh, Minter, he's a better coach than John Harbaugh. And with where this Ravens team is, they need to win right away. And they could make the defense better because the defense had slipped off. But he better get his offensive coordinator hire right, because Lamar Jackson had fallen off a little bit. And as Lamar gets older, he's not going to be able to save them with his legs as much as often either. So I don't think it's a bad hire, but this isn't the slam dunk that I think some people are acting like it is.
No, I agree, and I think as Lamar ages, you probably do want that consistent voice in his ear, the same play caller on a year-to-year basis, and when you hire a defensive coach, again, that just sets you up to maybe not have that if you have success year after year on the offensive side of the football. But I do think across the NFL right now, you are seeing teams more willing, open-minded of hiring defensive head coaches because the league's kind of becoming more defense first right now. It's taking over the league. So I think you are seeing a philosophy switch in some organizations, and that's interesting to see.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's funny how it kind of swings back the other way.
The NFL's a circle, man. It all comes back around.
It certainly does, whether we're talking about scheme with the two high safety shells and talking about going to the run game, and then offenses countering by going with 3 tight ends and jumbo set offensive lines, and then teams will counter that by bringing an 8th guy down in the box and playing more
game of chess, man.
And then we're right back to where we were in 2018 and 19, and it's just
I can't wait for that to come back, man. I need that era back.
Hey, man, that's
I need 5,000-yard passers again, man. That's when I love ball.
Yeah, I'm sure the NFL would love that back as well. But I got my eye on Jesse Minter in Baltimore. I'm not quite convinced that that's as big of an upgrade as maybe they're hoping for there. But with that being said, that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. The Super Bowl is set, and also been a crazy weekend in the States with the weather. Hope everybody is safe and warm out there. It's been, tough times for pretty much everybody from Denver all the way over. It's just been absolutely crazy. I mean, there were tornado warnings in the South while I'm getting buried with, 20 inches of snow and stuff. Just
Same
a
up here,
wild
man.
weekend. Absolutely. So I hope everybody is safe, healthy, warm, family's okay. I know it's been tough. Stay strong out there. But with that being said, that's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. I am your host, the Madman, Tyler Rowland, for my co-host, the Legacy, Louis DiBiase. As we tell you every episode, thanks for tuning in and stay safe out there.